Hey, what's going on, guys? We got a special guest here today. We have Neil Twa. He's the CEO of Voltage Holding, which manages more than 21 brands, nine which they directly own. Neil, we're excited to have you on the hashtag Clockedin podcast. How did you get into the e-com space, and is it viable today?
Yeah, is ecom viable today? Great question, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I get to have fun on
Absolutely.
these, and I think we'll have some fun today. I hope so. Anyway, the aspect of that question comes around, usually risk management. Is it something I should get into? Should I risk money? Should I risk time, energy, attention? Make the four factors of any kind of business decision around time and team effort. And the answer for me is yes, wholeheartedly. In fact, I'm doubling down. We're acquiring companies. We're going bold into the market this year because I honestly believe that there's a pivotable, that's a great word, pivotable, I have to get it out, uh, move happening in 2025 that I think if you look at it from like a 30, 50,000 foot view, you can kind of see it. If you're down in the trenches, if you're down in the daily grind, if you're trying to get paycheck to paycheck, if you're doing these kinds of things, which I get, by the way, because I've been there, and being bankrupt and having no money is not a lot of fun. We can talk about that if you want. But the end result is I've been at that daily grind, and it's hard to see the analogy, of course, the forest through the trees. And since I'm now able to step back at things and look at kind of more of an overarching perspective and kind of envision and think forward and do projections for our business and what we're doing with our time and money and stuff. I look at it and I say, okay, where is the year for ecom? Where are we headed? All the markets predict we should go up. All the indicators of year-to-date sales from 2024 are all up, right? People are like, well, nobody has money. Well, somebody's buying something because they bought a lot of stuff last year and they bought more
Absolutely.
than they did the year before.
Yeah.
So with that, we're seeing about an average on the Amazon channel, which of course is different than other channels, about 13% growth every year.
Wow.
And that's a low on the Amazon side. We'll see higher in certain brands year over year growth, and organic growth is going pretty fast. And so I look at the social and geoeconomics. I have to kind of keep a tariffs and keep an eye on those things for products and things in motion. I trying to make sure that if we see certain indicators like we saw in 2019, that we can avoid and prepare for certain major changes in supply chain. In 2020, we had containers that were like 4,800 per 40-foot container in the fourth quarter of 2019, jumped to 25,000 in the first quarter of 2020. So with
That's
that
massive.
occurrence, massive, changes and shifts. People are like, well, tariffs. And I'm like, dude, tariffs aren't going to run us from 48 to actually the container costs have all gone down. They've gone down
Yeah.
dramatically, right? We're down to like 2,000 to 3,000 per container right now, not
Oh,
up.
that's
So
fantastic.
people are screaming tariffs and costs because some people are operating at margin. And I totally get that.
Yes.
And with that, from a business person versus personal perspective, from a business perspective, I'm bullish on 2025. I'm bullish about the businesses, the opportunity, the indicators that onshore manufacturing is going up. The ability for certain cash flow is being freed up. Certain economic conditions are changing with our environment. It seems like it's chaotic, but there also seems to be a concerted effort to try to stop spending in one direction, which is going to maximize output for people's personal finances. So
Absolutely.
again, as I see these changes and reciprocal tariff engagements occurring, what it means at the short end of that stick is that our products are going to reach more people in the world where we have not been able to send certain products and opportunities out into the world because the tariffs ate most of the profit. And it was
Yes.
because certain countries wanted to stop America from making manufacturing opportunities occur. So we haven't been able to export those products. So manufacturing onshore disappeared. And
Yeah.
as those things occur, and as people are now being bullish in the manufacturing space, and opportunities for capital growth are showing up, there is nothing but opportunity on the horizon, as far as I can see.
Absolutely. And it's causing us to, and this is all because of the administration, right?
It's a hope, the effect of what they're doing hasn't really slung totally into the economy yet. You can see that it's building, but we have such a giant machine of industry
Of course.
with GDP and things. We haven't quite seen the effects of that hit the bottom line yet. We haven't seen it in the cost of eggs. We haven't seen it in other things. We haven't seen it yet quite in the supply chain, but I honestly feel like it's that rubber band pulling back. And it's just
Yeah.
pulling back every day. They find junk every day. They're holding people accountable every day. We see things changing. That's creating a hope, an
Yeah.
overall hope. Yeah, there's dissension. And of course, don't dive into the comment sections on Facebook or TikTok unless you want to come out taking a shower and feeling all slimy,
Yeah.
because your friends and family are hating on you. I lost a friend the other day. Hey, goodbye, Neil. I just can't, you're not the guy I thought you were. Okay, well, that's cool.
That's okay.
Don't just go writing people off because you don't agree with their opinion.
Of
The fact of the
course.
matter is there's a lot of unknowns, but what we can definitely see is there's opportunity was putting hope into the market. And if that's occurring because of the administration's changes, great. It could be anybody, frankly.
Yeah.
It
No,
does that at the
absolutely.
end of the day. It's just, is it a positive net effect? And we haven't quite seen it yet, but I think it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of things will happen there, and then you'll see it 6, 12 months down the
It'll come
line.
down. It's always going to take a little time for it to trickle backwards. You know, people are super excited about the stimulus check idea concept, and Trump is like,
Yeah.
well, we may give you some of this money back, and that's cool. Personally, I'd rather just pay down all the debt. But then again,
Yeah.
I'm not at margin. Ask me that, 15 years ago, and I'd probably say, give me the check. I'll take the money,
Abs-
please. But at the same
absolutely.
time, yeah,
So for
just opportunity. There's always
a hundred,
opportunity, even in a down market.
100%. So for you, I know you were at IBM,
I
and
was
then you decided to start your own business.
fired the man.
How did you think about that? And how can other people today who might be not having a business or not anything,
Yeah.
obviously it was years ago, but how can they think about that process? Because
Well,
we've
I am.
talked about people,
I have a
yeah.
birthday next week, but that sounded like it was a dig on how old I was. It was a long time ago, Neil. Way back,
Well, my point
you
being
were
is that you've
clawing
been running it for
fire for your
17
for your
years and
dinner.
it's been very
Yeah, well,
successful. Like,
17 years feels like a long time. I know, I'm just joking. 17 years is a long time. However, I look up and I'm like, I have to look at that number and go, wow, that is actually kind of a long time. I hadn't really put that in perspective because it went really fast. I had kids and didn't sleep for a decade, so that helped.
I can
Um,
only imagine.
yeah, dude. So the in 2007, it wasn't just a decision to leave that year and be like, I'm done with this. I'm fed up. It was a culmination of activities that occurred. One, I never wanted to go to college in the first place. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. College was a
Okay.
fallback position when I got rejected by the Air Force because I couldn't fit in the cockpit of the F-16 and they couldn't close it. So I'm like, well, dang it, I'm out. I had a friend who I found discovered about 6 months ago. Turns out we've become good friends because of this. He went to the Air Force too, but he was rejected from a cockpit to go to the Air Force because his legs were too long, and so he jammed into the deck. He could fit in one direction, I couldn't fit the other, so it's a funny story. So I went to college. I didn't want to go there. I failed out 3 times, got reinstated. I'm like, I don't want to be here. Like I was there on
Yeah.
music and ride, and I just didn't want to be in college. Well, the internet came online and saved my life. And with that, I got into a startup company called Sprint PCS, mobile phones in Kansas City, and they were launching
Okay.
mobile phones in the internet. This thing grew like from 5,000 to 80,000 employees in 5 years
Wow.
while I was there. Hyper growth, just like whoosh, mobile phones, like crazy, which was cool. That led me to IBM, but I didn't really want to be there either because I never wanted to be in the corporate world. I wanted to be, independent, be in business, this kind of stuff. And what ended up happening was kind of a critical moment. I had an uncle who we call him my rich dad because my poor
Of
dad, who's
course.
still alive, he's not really poor. He isn't poor in money. He's not poor in spirit. Dude's 82, hard as a rock. He's a two-time Vietnam veteran.
Oh, incredible.
he's a horrible boy, but
Incredible.
he's gone soft with 4 granddaughters. So I like to tease him about it. But he was just a hardworking, suck it up, buttercup kind of guy. But he didn't know anything about money. He didn't know anything about finances. He knew about hard work, and that's awesome
Yeah.
because it taught me a lot about hard work and tenacity and perseverance and doing things for yourself and for others. And helping people. It's just always helping people. I mean, get under cars in cold weather and fix their cars. He's a good guy.
Absolutely.
But he ended up doing by money. So my uncle happened to be someone who was more entrepreneurial. His family was more entrepreneurial. He started a boat company in San Diego, and I got to see that process and kind of grow as a younger man through the process. He mentored me for a while. Unfortunately, he died in an aircraft accident in 2005, and so I
Oh,
lost
wow.
him during that kind of period when I was at IBM, thinking it was time to leave. And it took me about 2 years to finally pull the trigger, and IBM pulled the trigger at the same time I did. So when they came for early retirement in 2007 and I was ready to go, it just worked out perfectly. And I said, go, this is my
Yeah.
opportunity. And we all have those moments, if we're in a job or we're not in a job, if we're in a situation, we see those pivots. Sometimes we get past them 3 miles down the road and look back and go, oh yeah, we should have turned back there. That was my moment. I didn't want to miss that. So I'm like, hey, I'm done with you two. Fire the man, burn the boats, not the bridges. So I left my relationships intact, but I'm like, I'm never going back. That's the end of it.
Yeah.
And I set that in my mind that no matter what, I was never going back to the corporate world. It's not what I wanted. And so I set off into do management consulting, built a little practice up, figured out I was still trading time for money. This is just kind
Yeah.
of a connection of the self-employed world, another level of risk and reward. My uncle, again, who had died, had opened my mind to the idea of business and really, planted a seed that grew quite fast in a couple of years. And just, it was one of the things I knew that I was always going to end up doing. I just didn't
Yeah.
sure yet how, and I couldn't quite honestly tell you that I would have got to this point if I had tried to plan it 17 years ago. I think if people try to plan, into the very future of things, and I'm like, dude, if you could see 3 to 5 years forward, if you could see 2 years forward, heck, at this point, if you can get yourself a year forward in your thinking and just be like, where could I be 1 year from now? You're doing pretty good because things are moving so fast.
100%. I've been doing this podcast for probably 4 years now, and
Mm.
everybody I talk to, we were never talking about AI. Now every single person comes on and they're like, AI, this tech, and it's moving exponentially quicker.
You
So
can't
it's
keep up with
becoming
it,
harder.
dude. Can't
Yeah,
keep up with it. The Grok 3 war versus now the GTP 4 war, and it's like, well, they just keep innovating towards AGI, and pretty soon we're just going to like race ourselves off a cliff of sentient artificial intelligence, and we all know how that goes. I've seen the movies, right? We all know we're racing for our lives
absolutely.
across a desolate apocalypse landscape, trying to avoid the Terminators. Like, let's like be realistic. I don't want that either. But AI has been a huge fun aspect of our business, and processes have been condensed, and writing has gotten stronger, and there's listing and optimizations for our online have been gotten easier, and there's just a lot of cool things that AI has done to shorten and time compress and create opportunities in our business from ecom, which has been fascinating to watch. In the
Absolutely.
markets themselves, you can still play with it, but I think people mostly don't understand what to do with it yet or how to take advantage of it. So you kind of have to figure something in business to do, and then you'll see how AI applies itself, to whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I found is most people aren't viewing AI, they're not utilizing AI unless they're doing something creative, unless they're having a business, unless there's entrepreneurship,
Yeah,
because
otherwise
then
they're kind of just playing with it. Um,
exactly. So
Maybe
for
making
you,
reinventing asteroids with Grok 3. I saw that the other day, which is cool, but what does it do other than prove that you don't need developers at the level you think you do anymore?
yeah, absolutely. So for you, I know you were looking into ecom, so you're doing managing consulting. How
I
did you
was
guys get into start changing it into brands and management and Amazon? Because I know there's drop shipping, so many
so
changes
many
and things are
channels.
happening so fast
Oh
that
yeah.
it's kind of intimidating for a person who's paycheck to paycheck to go, yeah, I'm gonna hop into ecom, and it's like, how?
No, well, you gotta know. Honestly, today, if you're gonna hop into ecom at the level of paycheck to paycheck, you need to be in product flipping. You need to be looking for buy low, sell high on like Facebook Marketplace and other things. It's building a brand with a full e-commerce engine, a full inventory purchase is probably not in your wheelhouse, right?
Yeah,
So be careful with the online courses and these things where they're like, hey, pay $3,000 and you'll launch a seven-figure product on Amazon. What they're not telling you is the 30 to 40 to 50,000 you need behind it to actually make that economic engine really go for you and actually
absolutely.
turn into a going concern. That's just part of the online hopium guru lottery sniffing mindset mentality out there that you got to be very careful of, right? Real business is done in quarters, it's done in years, it's done usually at a negative startup position, a capitalized position that
Yeah,
turns into revenue, and from revenues you optimize into profits. That's the truth.
yeah,
How fast you get to revenues, very important, because that's actually when the business starts. And then
yeah,
from there, you optimize anything you're doing to get profits in the business. And then if you can, you reinvest the profits for growth so that you can take more out later. That's what
absolutely.
most people don't want to hear, right? Especially if they're thinking about business and growth. But from an e-commerce perspective, physical product and inventory are obviously a huge opportunity. In 2007, 2010, where I got into it a bit was in the online marketing side when my management consulting component, which was me basically on going on contracts, basically trading time for money, but for nicer dollar amounts, was like, well, I
Yeah,
can't keep doing this. And so I found a mentor, someone who actually mentored me at a Tulsa who owned a little business, a tech business, and just listening to him and watching how he closed deals and just being mentored by him personally, he kept repeating over and over, sales fixes everything, sales fixes everything.
yeah,
Just don't sell unethically. Don't be a used car salesman. Figure out what to sell through relationships, and just sell. Do not be afraid to sell. Do not be afraid of the rejection, because every
yeah,
no is a KNOW until
yeah.
it's a hell no. So don't give up. And I'm like, oh, well, that's genius. So when I did that, I finally expanded. I actually ended up with 10 management consultants and under a subcontract through IBM, believe it or not, on
Wow.
a public project. My team helped deliver the 2010 census.
Oh,
So
wow.
while they were doing that, I was playing with internet marketing, and I was looking at online marketing to generate more sales, more contacts, more revenue. And I stumbled upon mobile marketing. At that point, there was no web interfaces. I'm going to literally date myself like I should have a Gandalf beard here or something, like this is ancient technology. But literally, mobile marketing was a new thing, and sending advertising into people's cell phones was a new thing. And the iPhone had released, so this was getting faster and faster, right? But even though
Absolutely.
you know we were seeing some technology in internet, the other countries of the world had already had faster internet than us for like 5 years before. Like they're 5 years ahead of us in a lot of technologies, which most people in America
It's
can't even fathom,
very,
right?
Yeah, very fascinating. And that's why I think travel is so important because when you go to
Yeah.
different countries, you start to see the future and you're like, whoa, like
Some of
I
this
didn't
stuff is like
do
crazy.
this
How could they
thing.
have some infrastructure that's so much stronger than America, especially like in the internet and interwebs and technology, but in other places they're even like way behind us. Like it's
Of
fascinating
course.
dichotomy. But when I discovered that mobile marketing, there was no interfaces, no web, no whatever. I was literally putting spreadsheets on uploads into mobile servers that were then going out and doing media buys and then returning data back to me after the money was spent because there's no way
Oh,
to stop
wow.
it. Right. So it's like if you put 500 out there, you better be able to lose 500 or hopefully gain back
Because you
from
don't
that.
know what's going to happen.
You just, it's gone. You did your creative, you shot it out there like, Hail Mary, and you hope you get it right. And then you refine it and do it again and again. And so what ended up happening is some of the systems started to come online while I was doing that. And I started to have some success and I turned into more of affiliate marketing. And then I started to make more money than I was making on the management consulting side. And without the people problems and the system problems and the credit card billing and all the staffing problems that a management staffing firm has. And I said, hey, what if I just do this full time? And so I pretty much got rid of the people and just went into mobile marketing for a couple of years. With that
And
knowledge and information, I was making
so,
more every day than I was making a month previous to that. And then it was just
wow.
doubling over the top of itself because mobile
Wow.
advertising, cost per install, cost per lead, I was basically buying traffic and selling traffic and making it off the difference. And I could do
Yeah.
that 1,000 times a day
Because you
through the
can
mobile advertising.
so you can scale the information a lot
Oh,
more
I
because
could
you
scale the information. My mind just kind of went doing, like the abundance complex of the internet suddenly hit me like full brick. Like I was sending date. Some of my best offers were dating offers in South Africa and South America and other countries, Turkey and stuff. Like they were blowing up. Like I was making $1,000 a day in profit out of these countries because they were just buying these dating apps off of my advertising. And I was making like $1 to $3 every time they did that. And it was just like ching, 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 ching. And I was
and
just watching it come in like insanely fast. I'm like, oh my God.
and yeah, the best part about that is that people don't realize that half the time is you're putting in the work, you don't know what the result is going to be, but you have to
Nope.
test it out and try.
300 campaigns in, tens of thousands on a credit card that I was hoping I could start paying back. And I hit a winner. It took me 300
Really?
campaigns to hit the first winner. And once I
Wow.
hit that first winner, that was kind of the clutch moment where I realized some of the things I was doing wrong, right? Because out of
Yes.
failure, you learn. You don't learn out of success. Success is just one
Yeah.
of those things that kind of puts a notch on your belt and looks great and kind of gives you a little hopium hit. But then you're like, okay, back to work.
Yeah.
Because I of the 1,000 failures that were behind me, right? And I
Yeah.
just, 301, 302, 305, 310, like it just kept going. I just kept tweaking, tweaking, tweaking little 2 millimeter shifts, and they kept working and they kept working and it kept working. Once I figured out the narrative, once I figured out the audience, once I figured out who I was speaking to, then I could sell them these apps and I could sell them these installs and I could sell them this mobile stuff. And
And
what I realized though, the offer ended and I didn't
yes.
control the offer. And I'm like, hold on, I don't actually control the offer. So things that get going really well. And then the offer person who controlled the end was like, well, we're not running that anymore, or you can't run it in Turkey
You're
anymore. I'm
not
like,
an
oh,
affiliate there.
crap.
Yeah.
So I had to shut
No.
it down. No control.
So, yeah, because the major benefit there for the audience to realize is that Neil was constantly testing and iterating to see how
Constantly.
things improve. And most of the time, we sit there, run it once, maybe you'll test it 2 weeks
Yeah.
later, and it's like that's
I
not
spent a
enough.
few hundred
That's
dollars, but didn't make a few thousand. It's a total waste. It's a total scam. This thing doesn't work. No,
yes,
no,
most
these are the
people.
wrong thought. These are not strong coping mechanisms. These are not strong risk reward ratio in your mind. You have to realize the risk to reward ratio is going to be greater in the volume of opportunity. If you want 7 figures, you're going to have to risk 7 figures, right? Not
Yes,
upfront, but over time.
yeah.
Okay. To get to my first 7 figures in a physical product business took 3 years. Okay.
Wow.
So when we did that, from 2012 to 2015, I realized by the time I got to 2012, I needed to own the product. I needed to own the intellectual property. I needed to own the asset on the end because once I got the marketing engine going, I didn't want it to end. And if I could control the other half of it, I could stop that problem. And this was just
Yes.
an evolution. Like it seems like common sense now. And it's like I teach people this and we like, this is why you have to do this. But when I was doing it, that was new. That was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I figure this out? Like half the world probably
Yeah.
knew this. I feel stupid. I'm
Yes.
not figuring
And
this out. Right?
the funny thing is that a lot of people go from job to job to job and they start making more money that way. But in a
Yes.
business, people will start doing different businesses, different things, see what
Right.
works, what doesn't work. And you're basically doing new jobs each and every
You're
time.
kind of changing the offer, changing the scope, changing the marketing, which by the way is an activity of sales, not a
Yeah.
guarantee. So I think people hear guarantee in marketing. Well, if I market this product or I do this, I launch this brand, is it going to guarantee to make sales, or am I guaranteed if I work with you? No, nothing's guaranteed. Like, go
Yeah.
watch Tommy Boy. There's a great line in there where he talks about guarantees. You probably need to hear it. The end result is you need to go forward with iterations and fail your way forward. Fail, 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 fail. Small win. What did I do right? Okay,
Yes.
fail again, win. Oh, I got faster at
Yes.
winning. Why am I winning? Because I've done the second thing right that I figured out after the first mistakes I was making. And that is
And
just a never ending process, a desire and tenacity to just keep finding and breaking and going. And I realize I have that as a natural tendency to my personality. I
the
just
constant
wanting to
trial and
push,
error. Yeah.
try, go. It pisses everybody else off around me because it makes them like anxious because I'm always pushing. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do it
Yeah.
faster? Why is this not wrong? Why is this guy going slower? If he can't go faster,
Yeah.
then we need to replace this person. And I'm like, what? No. Like, yes, keep going. Push. So we did that. And when we controlled the product, okay, which we didn't at the beginning, to be honest, we flipped products and be transparent. We flipped products for profit and
Because it was
realized
that
to get
step process, how
well,
you
just to
got there,
figure
just
out
like
how
you're
to do it.
saying.
And
Yeah.
a buddy's like, you should try it on Amazon because you can't do this on eBay. And oh, by the way, they have this thing called fulfilled by Amazon, which means they deliver the products and package for you when you ship it to their warehouses. I'm like, oh, that's super cool. Because coming from the digital world, I didn't touch the products. I didn't want to touch them, and I didn't want a warehouse of inventory, which I later
Yes.
got anyways. Long story. But I didn't want to get out of my basement. I didn't want to drop ship stuff. I didn't want to be eBay and whatever. And he's like, no, you got to check out FBA. Cool. Well, it turns out they do all this really cool stuff to kind of automate the process of last mile. If you've ordered anything from Amazon, then you know what I'm talking about, right? It shows up in your door, etc. Well, we can utilize that too, right? So when we started utilizing that and having our own products, it completely changed. We first started by just testing the market with products. We found 200 of this and we flipped it and we sold it for a couple grand in profit. We're like, oh, that's super
So
cool.
I think that that's a really important thing for people to realize, that when you're
Okay.
getting started, you can try things out. You don't
You
have to
should
go
try
place
things
the
out.
five
It's
thousand dollar order, the 5,000 unit order. You should.
No, you should never try that. No, 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 no. You should always go through an iterative testing. We developed eventually what we call our 5x5 product launch process. 5 products in the market. Okay.
Yeah.
Those 5 can sell an average organic sales of 25 units a day of a physical product
Yeah.
with minimal $12 in net profit. That should net you about $300 to $400 a day in profit. And by the way, a day
Yeah.
doesn't end on Friday. It goes on Saturday and Sunday too. And it goes
Because
when you're sleeping, which is pretty important because at that point, everything I was doing was in my waking hours. And when I was
because
sleeping, I wasn't making money. And now I can make money 24/7. So that's a
and
big win.
it's scale, yeah, which is massive. You want to
Of
think
course.
differently, and that's
You got
why
to
I
think
want
differently.
that's why I want to Neil on the podcast, because it starts to get you to start thinking differently, for the audience to realize is that it's not, hey, I need to work these hours. It's no, the internet's always on.
Always
There are
on.
people always shopping. There are
Always
people
all around the
always
all
doing
around.
different things, and they buy at different times. And that's what's the power of the internet, is that you can reach all of these different people in a much quicker way.
What you need is a strategy and a process. If you understand the idea of a physical product and selling a physical product, if you've ever had a yard sale, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. This is just
Yeah.
different. You're not discounting it for 50 cents. You're actually increasing the price point, which is why I don't like eBay. But with Amazon, you increase your price point. So we test the products and we did test products. And in fact, one of my first hits was a product that I found. We ended up coining the phrase as the as seen on TV strategy for Amazon, which eventually led me into a conversation with Kevin Harrington and became friends
Oh,
with him later
nice.
on. But the antithesis of whether I was up at 4 in the morning feeding a bottle to my third daughter, and she was up, and I usually got the night shift because I'm a night owl. My wife gets really tired, and God bless her, so I stay up late, and she doesn't. But that worked great. So I'm up and I'm watching infomercials, and up pops this thing for seat pets, and it's this toy, and it's this doll, and it has a fit character fed on it or whatever. And I'm like, ooh, I want to get one of those, and immediately snapped on me because I was still in the process of training my brain and conditionally training my brain away from what can I buy to what the heck can I sell.
Yes.
And with that, it was like, oh, I could sell one of those, ding. And so the next morning I got up and I showed Reed, and he's like, yeah, let's go check it out. So we looked on Amazon, and they were doing a crappy job on Amazon, but they were doing all this front end marketing right
Yeah.
out into the infomercials and all this space, and their on Amazon presence was really bad. So we basically went and did a Hail Mary pass, which I do not recommend. We got 2,000 units of the products. We had anime features created to make a little differentiation, a little innovation, not
So
inventing, just
where did you
little
buy the
innovation.
2000 from?
We got them out of India. We had them
Okay.
manufactured for us. They did prototypes and stuff, and
Okay. A whole.
them
Okay.
do it,
Just
and
want
then
everyone to understand.
yeah, it wasn't. Unfortunately, it wasn't the United States. We had to find a manufacturer outside the country to do it. But we got those 2,000 in, and we got some really great photos. They were iPhone photos. kids in use, cute little figures. We did a pretty good job on the listing, wrote the copy, and got the graphics and everything in there. And in 8 weeks, we sold all 2,000 of those units organically. So what we did
Wow.
was we captured the demand coming onto Amazon from marketing and advertising that was happening off, and we simply beat them on the Amazon game. And once we realized that could happen, all this product opportunity just like opened up, like like lights came down and I think angels were singing, and we're like, holy crap. So once we realized that, we developed processes and methodologies to make sure profitability was there and we could increase the retail price point, which increased the profitability. We were actually selling $5 more per unit than the competitor. And Belt Buddies became our brand. Turned it into
Wow.
a great brand that led into a bunch of other brands in kitchen and home supplies and all kinds of product lines that just grew and grew in that process as we kept following this demand capture mentality, because Amazon is a demand capture platform. It was a
Yeah.
demand discovery platform back in the day, right? But
Okay.
now it's a
And
demand
what's the difference
capture
there?
platform.
What's the difference there? What does that mean?
One, it's two directions. So what's happening now is Amazon has got so many subscribers that are there every, to buy, and it is now capturing like 20 to 30% of online traffic as well as television ads, etc. People are now seeing it like a stationary de facto standard. If I can't get it on this website or in retail,
Go
I
to
can get it on
Amazon.
Amazon. And so they'll cross to Amazon continuously. So now it's capturing demand from all of these different places, right?
And
And
yeah, and I want the audience to realize you're probably already doing this. Like I have a protein bar that I buy at Publix. Like I'm in Tampa.
sure.
So there's a there's a bar that's at Publix. It was a six pack. They dropped the six pack to a four pack and they dropped $1. And I'm like, why would I buy a four pack for the same price? Look on Amazon, you can get a 12 pack for half the price.
That's
And it's
right.
like I'm just gonna buy these on Amazon because I still like the bar and I'm still gonna do the thing. But it's
Yep.
important to realize this that when you're looking at these different advertisements, it's like Netflix.
Correct.
Everyone's Netflix is catered to them, which
Yes.
means you're not going to look 20 pages in to go find the thing that's not for you. That's why in Amazon, you need to be one of those top looks so that you can be the one of the
Have
people
that
to say,
demand
okay,
that's already flowing. We call it Amazon as a river, but it's a decision tree of
yeah,
information, a data warehouse, but it's a flowing river of data that's flowing millions of searches for products every year. There could be 3 million searches for dish towels and 8 million for air fryers. And those are flowing like a river of sales through that demand. And it's coming from all these different locations, including sales on Amazon from people who were there and Prime members who were buying and constantly buying, or subscribe and
ab-
save or whatever. So it's created this like ecosystem that captures demand from locations outside of Amazon, which is
absolutely.
cool.
Absolutely. And that's completely different than the person who's like, yeah, I really like microphones. So I'm going to make a microphone brand. Like Neil is
Right.
looking at it, he's seeing where the demand is,
Correct.
and then he's capturing it where he's like, I'm going
Correct.
to place myself there and see if there's an
We
opportunity
look at the
there.
customer need first, and we determine
Yes.
the value of the customer need on the platform. Then we go backwards and determine the volume of the customer need, which then leads us down to, which ones have the profitability and the metrics in our green light process to determine our metrics of growth. And then out of that falls the products. Which products
Which
are
is,
most in demand for that customer need? We evaluate them through our green light process, and then we go after the ones that are in the highest demand, highest upside potential, lowest saturation with good competition, and ones where we know that there is a certain amount of vendors that are in there, 10, 20, 30, 40 of them, but we know that to break into the top 10% could happen in the next 18 months or less based on our projections. And then we will
yeah.
approach a test in that market to find out if the market will accept our product, our value, our proposition, our price point. And we do a 100 unit to 500 unit test of that, and we find out how close were we in the market with a language and copy and demand, because it's very important to understand something on the online world now. Okay.
Yeah.
We sell data to AI
Yeah.
engines. The AI
Yes.
engines in their systems sell the product to the customer.
Yes.
So
And
people are
that's
so I've got this all reversed. And if you get anything out of today, I don't sell products to customers, right? I sell data to AI engines.
and this is completely different than most of the people you've heard who started a
Yeah, they're all
product.
product focused, product, and you focus on all this product. And product is the second most important thing. I'm not discounting it. Neil, you're saying we don't have to worry about the product. I mean, people, come on. I didn't say yellow. It doesn't mean I don't like yellow. The end result is that products are the second most important thing. You must create a great product, but it does not have
Yes.
to be an invented product. It has to be an innovative product, which means you take something
Yeah.
in the market, you make it just a little bit better. You customize it, okay? Which gives you
Yes.
private label capabilities. But if it's in demand and you can create one, then what is the differentiator? It's your marketing and approach to that customer that makes the difference, and how you sell the data to the engine, which is entirely intended to get the right customer at the right place in the right time at the right price point to hit add to cart and do it again and again and again. And it's entirely geared towards all that with large language models and systems of super intelligence that I'm not even going to go after. So my thing is to proxy the right data. With the
Abs
right data, I determine which product is most in demand. So when I say I launch 5 products, I'm launching 5 data sets, okay,
yes.
to see which data set of graphics, images, copy, A plus content, or whatever else is in there is convincing the customer, okay, as within 30 seconds or less to buy one of my products. And I'm giving 100 products of units into each of those tests to find out which one sells. Remember, sales fixes everything, right? So
Yes.
now
So
I
I
know that
want to.
one or two of them will take off.
Yes. And this is so important for people to realize because it's not, this is completely contrarian to how most people are thinking about products in Amazon and doing all of this.
They
It's
think if
like,
I spend, 80 hours cutting, sharpening the axe, that if I get 1,000 and 5,000 units, that I'm going to be able to launch that into Amazon, and all of a sudden, within 6 months, all my Lambo hopes and dreams are going to occur. They're wrong. That happens for like
yeah,
1% of the people.
yeah,
99% of the people spend the first 12 months building their knowledge, expertise, and the learn and earn aspects of building up their brand. And then they go into growth mode in year 2, which begets profits. Okay. Profits can
yes,
happen in year 1, but if you deploy it back into the system, year 2 will go into growth. Every year on a system like Amazon, it's an exponential growth. So in the first year, only 5% of all new products see all of Amazon's market. By year 2,
wow,
that becomes 20%. It's exponential leap. And if the
yeah.
products stay in the market by year 3, that goes up to 40%. So you've got
And
a 3-year window on Amazon of growth to scale opportunity. And that's exactly how you have to approach it. If you're approaching it, well, I'm going to give this 6 months and see if it works, you've already lost. You've not given
yeah,
enough time in the system to mature the product, the review, the marketing, the inventory, and the growth, and you're going to fail at it, right? And no
absolutely. It's a,
$30,000 product is going to tell you that. No hopium
yeah.
guy's going to, because he wants you to buy your course.
No,
I don't sell
of course.
courses.
It's
I
of
just screwed
course.
him over just now.
It's a completely different approach. So Neil, I want to do a quick pivot here. I know
Sure.
you live a very interesting life.
Thank you.
What one that is very purposeful to you.
It is.
How did you do that, and what is this purposeful life? Because I know a lot of people are sitting there going like, "This sounds great, I get it, but like, what does that mean for my lifestyle? How does that look?"
Yeah, everybody talks about, build a business, have a great lifestyle. Well, in actuality, I work all week long. Even on the weekends, I work. But I love it. And I'm in love with the product and development and the process. And to me, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like an extension of life. And so by that, I made it a part of my lifestyle. I made it a part of the way we operate. We live on 50 acres in the country. We got a heritage seed garden we do every year. That's a 100-foot garden out there. We
Wow.
spend a lot of time with our kids. We homeschool our family here, and spend time with them all the time. As I was telling you before the call, I showed up a couple minutes late because we were in talking about, around the island, kitchen island, about economics and whether senators should have tenure and whether, they should be making money and if it's ethical to be
And
getting information from committees. We were going through,
and
economics.
how old are your kids?
The youngest is 11, will be 12 in April, and the oldest is 16. And then I have a 13-year-old and 15-year-old in the middle of that.
So are people learning that in high school and middle school?
No, not at this level of
Extent.
conversation. They don't even know how to write a checkbook, right?
I don't.
My kids are
I,
talking about rational factors in economics and elasticity and supply of demand. These are not, we are not the same, as the joke says on the internet. So
I,
we're always in learning and growing mode, and it's just an extension of our life to be a part of that in that business. And the whole purpose is my wife and I got going in life, and actually we got married in 2007.
oh,
We
nice. Oh,
got pregnant in 2007 with our
oh,
first
wow.
child, and because of complications, she went on bed rest. So, I left my job. She ended up leaving her job, and we started our business and a pregnancy and a new marriage all in the same year. So yeah,
That's a
suck on
lot.
that one. So so we just made purpose a part of everything. In fact, when we got going in that first 3 years, and I found the gentleman who was willing to help him kind of take me under his wing and learn to extend the time necessary to allow that to occur, we sold the home we built, right? We got rid of the
Wow.
car. We
Wow.
knew we needed the time to make this go. And so we pushed intensively to do and change our entire life. At that point, prior to that, I spent 200 days on the road with IBM in the year before
Wow.
leaving. And I did not want to be that. I didn't want to be that part of my family. I was not willing to just leave them. And so it was all about the purpose and value of our family over the profits. We knew they would come if we stayed focused and we stayed intentional. And so family and, the drive to stay around my family and not leave them was the intent of the entire thing. The business just had to fit into it.
Yes. And when you think intentionally, it completely changes everything because you're gonna
100%. You're willing to do certain things. You're willing to risk certain things. Neil, I can't do that. I'm not in the same place. I have a mortgage. I have a car. I have an. Well, you can get rid of the mortgage. Well, but I have the car, and then get rid of the car too. Actually, you have a choice. You have a choice to
no,
do.
and it's all choices because a lot of us
Um,
sit there and go, I can't change my lifestyle. I can't do this.
Absolutely.
Everything we do is a choice.
Change the
So
language. What you're saying is I won't.
yes, absolutely. And you start to realize here the amount of time you save, the amount of time you spend with your family because they're homeschooled, the amount of time you save
Yes.
with your wife because she's not working, or she
Right.
might be working from the home.
Oh, she
It's
works. She will tell you. Yeah, she works a lot here around
it's
the
a lot
house.
of it's a
She
lot of
works.
time together because you guys don't realize it is that that whole contrarian thinking of I have to drive to this office, I have to do this thing, those are becoming more and more optional nowadays. I mean, you guys were doing it way ahead of your time, but it's becoming super optional after the COVID, everything that went on there, and
Yep.
people start to realize that you can do things very differently. You can create whatever life you want.
You
And
absolutely
I
can.
think
And to get out here 10 years ago, where we're now on this acreage, we left the 3,800 square foot home and moved into an 1,800 square foot home, right? Knowing that
wow.
eventually, because we had the acreage, that the kids were smaller and we'd upgrade the house. We
Yeah.
wanted to move away from the city. We wanted to have the homeschooling aspect. We wanted more control and influence over their lives for the future opportunities that we hope they could get as we went through this process ourselves. And eventually we've added on to the house and we've gotten, bigger stuff and we've made more room and this kind of thing. But even by that standard, based on what we make, it could be a lot more grandiose. That's not our focus. Our focus is on pouring into our family, not pouring into our stuff. So some people would look at our house
Yes.
and be like, well, why do you have a nicer house? Well, because I got a bigger business.
A- And the other funny thing was I forgot it was one of the comedians. He literally goes, "You can have a 5,000 square foot house,
Sure.
but there's something about having the 2,500, 3,000 square foot
Yeah.
house where you run into your kids
You see
consistently.
everybody. You're
There's
forcibly
chaos,
to,
there's stuff
yeah,
going on. You're like, this is
yeah,
a mess. This is." And it's that whole family environment because you're like 5,000 square feet.
100%.
I might not see my daughter for 3 days. Like,
She's on some other part of the house. No, and forcibly, because of the way we have now the kitchen and island and living area and extension all together, it's now about 3,000 square foot. And it's perfect because the entire mingling area of our home opposite of their rooms, which they don't spend very much time in at all, hardly at all, actually, they spend all of their time on this end of the house. So we're always around each other.
and you
And
you said
we
you
get to
have
have
it's
just
you two
impromptu
and
conversations anytime we want.
it's you two and three kids,
No, it's my we have four kids and my wife and
four
I, so six
kids.
of us total.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the best because what I realize is if you're at that 5 to 600 square feet per person, everyone gets their individual space.
Right.
But at the same time, you're running into each other constantly, but there is enough space,
Oh,
which
there's
is
plenty
super
of
important.
space.
Yeah.
Well, and what space do you actually need? If you're trying to distance yourself from your children, what's the point? If you don't want your children and you want them out of the house every day, then what's the point? Like,
Yeah.
really, why have children if you constantly don't want them to be around you? Why have them if you don't want to enjoy them? Why be around these people if you didn't want them in the first place? Really think about it for a
Yeah.
second. I know it sounds like critical, but it's people argue about, well, we can't wait for my kids to go back to school. And I'm like, okay, why? Do you not want to be
Yeah.
around your family? Like, these are the questions that go through my head. Like, why do you not
Yeah.
want to be around them? It's because you're not
So,
raising people you want to be around. So start raising the people you want to be around.
so who taught you and kind of gave you, were there any mentors in your life that kind of gave you this eye-opening experience of like, maybe we should homeschool, maybe we should go build a larger pasture, maybe we should get more farmland? Like, where did that idea come from?
It came out of a desire. This is going to sound really kind of simple, maybe, or just not specific enough.
Mhm.
But I was sitting around a table on the last project at IBM before I left. And there was like a dinner where you have the, last project dinner or whatever. And then people sit around.
Yeah.
And there was four guys there and a couple of ladies. And we were having dinner. And one of them answered his phone. About 25 years my senior at that point, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you had your dance, and oh, how did it go? And oh, I can't wait to
Oh
see
no.
when I
Oh
got home."
no. I know where this is
And
going.
because it was the end of the time, because we were training, because I was already starting to think about leaving and kind of figuring out what this situation was going to change like as I was getting married. This was like December, and I was getting married in March, and he was on the phone. And I knew I was getting married and things were changing, and I wanted it to change. suddenly I was willing to hear and listen. My eyes were open. I was willing to accept that information, and I heard that conversation, and it wrecked my heart on his behalf.
Yeah.
But it also changed my idea. It also changed my thought process. I did not want all of the things that I was shooting for. I did not know why I was going after them. I don't know, not know why I was just pushing for these things. And when we have kids, they're going to go to school and we're going to send them to college and they're going to be these, people. And why I was pushing for all that stuff. It just like, why? It just hit me like a ton of bricks. And
Yeah.
and through that entire period of dealing with the next year with my wife and stuff, and getting pregnant, the conversations were forcibly put in front of us to decide what we wanted to do next. And it
Yeah.
just kept ringing in my head, that conversation I heard, and the angst in his voice and the heartache in his face. It
Yeah.
hurt his heart. And when I saw that empathy for him, it came out and it was compassion. And I was like, I don't want to be that place. I don't want to have those phone calls with my kids. I am not going to do that.
Yeah.
And so the whole premise of everything I was building towards changed. And then it just became an actionable step with my wife and everything after that to just keep turning it. And she, by the grace of God, was like, I want to not go to work anymore. I would rather stay home and take care of the kids and do this. And I'm like, thank you. Like, let's do this. This is amazing. And she had to take a lead role and she had to sacrifice herself in doing that. And because of that, she is an integral part of why this whole thing works. I
Of
couldn't do
course.
what I do here if she doesn't CEO this situation over here. And we
Yeah.
have space and she gets to do what she needs to do to take care of the kids without question and, provide. And I get to provide over here and I do whatever I need to do in the business without question. Make the money, make the finances. I don't need her approval. She is just lets it go. And with that freedom, I'm able to move and flow through the business and allow her to flow through life. And together we kind of became a team. And
Yeah.
it became very purposeful that the value of what we were doing was greater than the profits. And so we shifted that conversation to what we now call the 5 profits,
Yeah.
which the first one is faith. If you're going to do any kind of
Yeah.
business, you got to walk out on the water and do not expect to be Jesus. So you're probably going to sink it first. It's who's there to help you get back in the boat. It's most important. Okay.
Yeah.
And there is, faith, family. The second group is going to be anybody who's going to support you through this, whether they're critical or not. They're usually going to be the last ones at your deathbed or your funeral, no matter what happens, right? Even if they're waiting to see
Yeah.
your inheritance, they're going to be there. The friends component, some friends can be closer to you than family. Some of them can help you. They can build relationship. They can build tribe. Friends can be a very important component of your life, even sometimes closer than your family. Okay. The next one is finances. Without it, you can't have a going concern. You can't have a profit. You can't have payments for your kids and mortgage and anything else you need. You got to have finances, right? So be very smart about how you deploy them and what you do with them. And the last one is the freedom to do all the other things I just mentioned. You actually have it. And when you start to empower your language of choice, you stop saying, I don't have to be here. You start to say, I get to be here. And when you change the I
Yes.
get to be here, you suddenly realize, well, I get to be anywhere. I get to be somewhere else if I want to. I get
Yeah.
to not go to work today. If I don't want to,
Yeah.
I don't have to go to work. Of course, it has
Yeah.
consequences. So then you just have to stop and think, well, if I get to be here, then I should change the way that I am here. And if I don't
Yes.
want to be here, then I get to be somewhere else because I choose to be somewhere else. And you get to empower
Yes.
that choice. It's all freedom. And it literally gets into your mind, all the barriers, mountains, issues, etc. Okay. And you start counting those mountains as some sort of, accolade. And instead of, climbing the mountain, you carry it. Right. And
Yes.
instead of that, you start using this baggage and you carry this baggage around and you look at my mountain, man. And nobody wants to see your mountain, dude. We all got them. So
Yes.
figure out how to put that
Absolutely.
down and start working towards the positive aspects of things you get to do and when you get to do them. And then you start thinking differently about time.
Yes.
Time, the biggest factor of all of these things is time. As we grow
Yes.
older, especially for you men that are listening to this, we start thinking about generational opportunities in kids and what we want to do and what we're going to leave them as a legacy or value, not just monetary, but historically and emotionally, maybe spiritually and financially combined, and obviously what's the purpose of all of that. As you get older, you start thinking about that more differently. And here's
Yes.
the generation of opportunity is now. It's not 20 years
Yes.
in the future.
No, and that's the most important thing that when you start building a process and you start working towards it, you can put those deposits in every single day, moving closer to your goals. But if you don't have that goal, then it's not there, which I think is
Banking on the
super.
future is arrogance and pride.
Yes.
It is. It's banking on arrogance and pride. And if you're like, well, I'm not an arrogant, prideful person, tell me about all your future plans for a second. And then we'll talk about your
Absolutely.
arrogance and pride because you believe you're going to be here when you're 68. I don't.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I know I'm going to die before 68? No, I just don't believe I'm going to be here. Why?
Yeah.
Does that change the way I think about every day? Why does that
Yeah.
change the way I think about investing in my family and my kids?
You're
Why
going to
is it
spend more time with the
I am
children.
going to
You're going to
do
do
it
more things.
now? Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm going to look forward and be like, well, what is it to be at 90? Where do I want to be when I'm 90? And then I'm going to look backwards and be like, well, I'm turning 49 next week. So I got 40 years left,
Yeah.
right? I can figure this out.
Absolutely.
So I'm
Absolutely.
going to do it now. And so if you start to think differently into abundance, time becomes a different factor in your mind. And you start to realize that everybody has a certain amount of time. Why can people seem to do more with the time they have and others cannot? Because
Yeah.
they've completely shifted the focus of time, purpose, and value. And instead of
Yes.
saying to your children, I don't have time to do that, try saying to that, you're not valued enough for me to do that with you right now.
Yeah. And when you start thinking that way, it's going to cause you basically there's parameters. When you put parameters on yourself, it
Yep.
causes you to do different things. So
You will
like,
be forced to think about it
yes.
different. If you would go
Yes,
to your child
exactly. And
today
then
and
you'll
say,
have
you know
different
what?
action. You'll have
Yeah,
different
saying
actions,
I don't have time is
100%.
just an excuse to get out of, well, I don't have time to do this because daddy has to go to work. Okay, fine. That is a reciprocal, value of what you're providing for the home. No skin, no shame in the game, right? But here's the thing. Try telling your kid that in a different way. Try telling them, hey, this thing over here is more valuable than you are to me right now.
It's a
Try
reframe.
rephrasing that language
And
to their
everyone
face.
says they're doing it for their family, but it's like,
No,
are you really? So
no, they're
Neil,
doing it for reasons that don't drive purpose and value. They just have to stop thinking and refocus it.
absolutely. Neil, where I we could probably go for another 3 hours. Where can people learn about you? Where can they learn
Well,
about Voltage?
yeah, personally, LinkedIn or Facebook is where I go and shed my very, independent thoughts where they haven't kicked me off yet. They can go to voltagedm.com, voltagedigitalmarketing.com, where we talk about Amazon, Shopify, TikTok, anything e-commerce related and sales channels in focus. If you want to grab the book, it's here or below. I think we're giving away 10 free copies for anybody who wants to check that out. It's a strategy guide for how to build purpose and value and profits into your business, into your life, following a strategy of e-com. And again, voltagedm.com is probably a great place. Presentation, free trainings, and the book and everything are there to give you more information about what we do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.